Marcus had been wandering the alien world of Kepler 442b for 3 months now, ever since the transport ship carrying Earth's orphaned refugees crash-landed in the dense purple forests. At 17, he was one of the older survivors, and the responsibility of keeping the younger ones alive had fallen on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. The crash had scattered them across the continent, and Marcus had been searching for other survivors when he heard the crying. The sound was soft, almost musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but there was pain in it, unmistakable even across species barriers. Marcus pushed through the thick, violet-leafed undergrowth until he reached the riverbank. The water rushed fast and deep, its surface gleaming with an oily rainbow sheen that marked it as one of the dangerous chemical rivers the other survivors had warned him about. On the far side, huddled against a cluster of crystalline rocks, was a creature unlike anything in Earth's databases. She appeared to be roughly his age in development, with pale blue skin that shimmered like pearls and 4 arms that moved with graceful precision. Her large silver eyes were filled with tears that seemed to glow in the dim light filtering through the canopy. What struck Marcus most was her condition. Her lower body was clearly damaged, twisted in a way that suggested she couldn't walk properly. The alien girl noticed Marcus and tried to move away, fear evident in her posture. She spoke in a language that sounded like running water mixed with musical notes. Though Marcus couldn't understand her words, her tone was pleading, desperate. "Hey, it's okay," Marcus called out, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. He pointed to himself. "Marcus, human." Then he pointed to her questioningly. She hesitated before responding. "Zara," she said, her voice trembling. "Velcarian." Marcus could see she was trapped. The rocky outcropping she clung to was surrounded by the rushing chemical water on 3 sides, and the 4th side led to a steep cliff face she clearly couldn't climb with her disability. He studied the river, noting the patterns in the current and the placement of larger rocks that broke the surface. The water was definitely toxic. Marcus could smell the sharp, acidic scent even from his side. Direct contact would be dangerous for both of them. But Marcus had grown up in Earth's polluted industrial districts before the evacuation. He'd learned to read dangerous waters, to find safe paths through chemical spills and contaminated streams. Marcus began gathering materials. He broke off several of the long, flexible branches from nearby trees, testing their strength. The alien wood was surprisingly resilient, with a rubber-like quality that made it perfect for his plan. He also collected flat stones and strips of thick bark, his mind already working out the engineering problem. Zara watched him with growing curiosity as Marcus began constructing what looked like a primitive raft, but instead of a simple platform, he was creating something more sophisticated, a series of connected sections that could flex with the current while keeping its passengers above the toxic water. As he worked, Marcus tried to communicate with Zara. He pointed to the raft, then to her, then to his side of the river. She understood immediately and shook her head vigorously, pointing at the dangerous water and making sounds that clearly meant death or poison. Marcus nodded to show he understood the danger, then pointed to his makeshift vessel and held up his thumb, a gesture he hoped translated across species as positive. He had noticed that Zara's people seemed to use similar hand signals, though with 4 arms, their gesturing was more complex. The construction took him nearly 4 hours. By the time he was finished, Kepler 442b's twin suns were beginning to set, casting long shadows across the river. The raft was a masterpiece of salvage engineering, multiple segments connected by flexible joints, with raised edges to keep the toxic water out and a primitive paddle system that could be operated from the center. Marcus tested the craft on his side of the river first, noting how it handled the current and adjusting the balance. Satisfied, he began the dangerous journey across. The chemical water hissed and bubbled around the raft's edges, and Marcus could feel the heat it generated even through his makeshift vessel. The current was stronger than he'd anticipated, and twice he nearly lost control completely. But Marcus had spent years navigating Earth's polluted waterways as part of survival training in the refugee camps. He read the water like a map, using the current instead of fighting it, finding the calm spots between the dangerous rapids. When he finally reached Zara's rocky refuge, she was staring at him with something approaching awe. Up close, Marcus could see that Zara's injuries were old, but poorly healed. Her lower body was twisted, and what appeared to be her equivalent of legs were withered and weak. She would never be able to swim or wade across the river, even if the water weren't toxic. Marcus gestured for her to climb onto the raft. Zara hesitated, clearly terrified of the water, but desperation won out. As she moved, Marcus noticed how her 4 arms compensated for her damaged lower body, and how gracefully she managed to transfer herself despite her disability. The journey back was even more treacherous. Zara's weight changed the raft's balance, and Marcus had to adjust his technique constantly. Worse, they were traveling against the current, which meant more time exposed to the toxic environment. Marcus could feel his eyes beginning to burn from the chemical vapors, and he worried about what the exposure might do to Zara's different physiology. Halfway across, disaster struck. One of the raft's segments caught on a submerged rock and began to separate. Marcus quickly grabbed the connection point, holding it together with his bare hands while trying to steer with his feet. The toxic water splashed up, burning his arms and filling his nostrils with acid fumes. Zara saw his struggle and did something unexpected. Despite her fear, she reached out with 2 of her arms to help hold the raft together, her touch surprisingly strong and sure. Together, they managed to keep the vessel intact long enough to reach calmer water near the far shore. When they finally reached Marcus's side of the river, both were exhausted and somewhat poisoned from the chemical exposure, but they had made it. Marcus helped Zara off the raft and found a comfortable spot for her among the soft moss that grew near the riverbank. As they recovered, Marcus shared some of his meager food supplies, nutrient bars from the crashed ship that were bland but safe for most carbon-based life forms. Zara produced some kind of crystalline fruit from her belongings, offering it to Marcus with a shy smile. It tasted like honey mixed with starlight. That night, as they rested beside a small fire Marcus had built, Zara began to teach him basic words in her language. She pointed to objects and spoke their names in her musical voice, then listened carefully as Marcus repeated them in his clumsy human pronunciation. In return, Marcus taught her English words. Amazed at how quickly she picked up the harsh consonants and strange vowel sounds of his language. "Why, you help, Zara?" she asked in broken English as the fire began to die down. Marcus thought about it for a moment. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "Where I come from, we believe in helping people who are in trouble." Zara's large silver eyes studied his face in the firelight. "Velcarians not believe this. Weak ones, left behind." The sadness in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. "Well, humans are different. We believe everyone has value, no matter what their body can or can't do." As they settled down to sleep, neither Marcus nor Zara noticed the small devices hidden in the trees around them. Devices that had been recording everything since the moment Marcus first appeared at the riverbank. The rescue had not gone unobserved. In a command center many miles away, 50 of the finest Velcarian warriors watched the recordings with growing amazement. They had witnessed something unprecedented, not just the technical skill Marcus had shown in building his rivercraft, but something far more significant. A member of an unknown species had risked his own life to save one of their people, someone who, by Velcarian standards, should have been abandoned long ago. The warriors' leader, a scarred veteran named Kethvar, watched the footage for the 3rd time. "Replay the section where he holds the raft together," he commanded. The hologram flickered, showing Marcus gripping the failing connection with his bare hands while toxic water burned his skin. The human's face was twisted with pain, but his determination never wavered. "Look at his vital signs during this sequence," Kethvar said to his officers. "He was in genuine danger. This wasn't a calculated risk. He was willing to die for her." One of the younger warriors spoke up. "Sir, our intelligence indicates this human has no connection to our people. He had never seen a Valkyrian before today." "Exactly," Kethvar replied, "which makes this even more extraordinary. He saved her simply because she needed saving. Not for honor, not for reward. Not even because they shared a species bond. Just because it was right." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. In Valkyrian society, disabled individuals like Zara were typically left to fend for themselves once they reached maturity. It was considered practical, even merciful. Resources were limited, and survival required strength. But this human had turned that logic on its head. "Sir," another officer said, "we've identified the human. His name is Marcus Chen Rodriguez. He's one of the survivors from the Earth refugee ship that crashed 3 months ago. Our scouts report he's been actively searching for other survivors, often putting himself at considerable risk." Kethvar nodded slowly. "And Zara? What's her status?" "Exiled daughter of the coastal clans, cast out when her lower limbs were damaged in a crystalline avalanche 2 years ago. She's been surviving alone in the wilderness since then." The war leader was quiet for a long moment, watching the recording of Marcus and Zara sharing food by their fire. In that simple scene, he saw something that challenged everything he had believed about strength, about worth, about what it meant to be civilized. "Prepare 50 fighters," Kethvar announced. "Full ceremonial armor. We have a debt to repay." His officers exchanged confused glances. "Sir, this human has shown our people a greater courage than any we've displayed in 100 years of warfare. He has honored us in a way we had forgotten was possible. We will honor him in return." As dawn approached on Kepler 442b, Marcus woke to find Zara already awake, her forearms weaving together some kind of intricate pattern with grass and small flowers. She showed him the finished product, a beautiful bracelet in a design he didn't recognize, but somehow found deeply moving. "Gift," she said in careful English, "for kindness." Marcus accepted the bracelet with a smile, slipping it onto his wrist. The craftsmanship was incredible, far beyond anything he could have created. "It's beautiful, Zara. Thank you." She beamed at his words, clearly pleased she had gotten the pronunciation right. As they prepared to continue Marcus's search for other survivors, neither of them noticed the movement in the forest around them. 50 figures in gleaming armor were taking positions, their advanced technology keeping them perfectly hidden as they prepared for a meeting that would change both their species forever. Marcus was helping Zara navigate through a particularly thick section of undergrowth when the forest fell silent. Not the natural quiet of midday rest, but the absolute stillness that meant predators were near. He had learned to recognize this phenomenon during his months on Kepler 442b. When the native wildlife stopped their constant chatter, danger was always close. Zara felt it too. Her forearms moved to defensive positions and her large silver eyes darted around the purple foliage. "Something comes," she whispered in her musical language, then added in broken English, "Many somethings." Marcus helped her settle against a large tree trunk, his mind racing through possibilities. The apex predators on this world were pack hunters, intelligent enough to coordinate ambushes. He reached for the improvised spear he had crafted from salvaged metal and alien wood, knowing it would do little against a coordinated attack, but needing the comfort of a weapon in his hands. The first figure emerged from behind a crystalline boulder 50 meters away, and Marcus's blood froze. It was clearly Valkyrian like Zara, but massive, easily 8 feet tall and covered in armor that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. The warrior's 4 arms held weapons Marcus couldn't identify, but their purpose was unmistakable. Then another appeared, and another. Within moments, Marcus counted at least 20 armored figures surrounding their position, with more emerging from concealment every second. Their movement was perfectly coordinated, professional in a way that spoke of centuries of military tradition. Marcus stepped protectively in front of Zara, his improvised spear raised despite the futility of the gesture. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. But Zara's reaction was not what he expected. Instead of fear, her voice carried a note of wonder. "Impossible," she breathed. "These are honor guard, elite warriors. But why?" The largest of the warriors, distinguished by additional markings on his armor, stepped forward. When he removed his helmet, Marcus saw a face that bore the same basic features as Zara, but was marked by numerous scars. This was clearly a veteran of many battles, someone who had earned leadership through combat rather than birthright. The war leader spoke in the Valkyrian language, his voice carrying the resonance of authority. Marcus couldn't understand the words, but he recognized the formal cadence of ritual speech. Zara gasped, her 4 hands moving to cover her mouth. He says they come to honor the human who showed courage beyond the understanding of their greatest warriors. He says they witnessed your actions at the river." Marcus blinked in confusion. "They were watching." "Surveillance drones," Zara explained, still staring at the assembled warriors in disbelief. "But Marcus, you must understand, these are the finest fighters of all the Valkyrian clans combined. For them to come here, in ceremonial armor, for a human—" The war leader continued speaking, and Zara's expression grew more amazed with each word. "He says his name is Kethvar, war leader of the United Clans. He says that in 40 years of warfare, he has never witnessed courage like yours. He says they have come to offer you the greatest honor their people can give." Marcus lowered his spear, though he kept it ready. "What kind of honor?" Before Zara could translate, Kethvar switched to accented but clear English, surprising them both. "The honor of truth, human Marcus. The honor of seeing ourselves clearly for the first time in generations." The war leader gestured to his warriors, and as one, they began to kneel. The sight of 50 elite fighters in full armor dropping to one knee in perfect synchronization was breathtaking. Marcus felt his heart racing as he tried to process what was happening. "Rise," Marcus said quickly, uncomfortable with the display. "Please, you don't need to—" "But we do," Kethvar interrupted, though he and his warriors remained kneeling. "You have shown us something we had forgotten. You have demonstrated the true meaning of strength." Kethvar gestured toward Zara. "This young one was cast from her clan because her body was broken. We called it mercy, told ourselves it was practical. But you, who had never seen her before, who owed her nothing, who shared neither blood nor species bond, you risked everything to save her. Why?" Marcus looked at Zara, who was staring at the kneeling warriors with tears streaming down her face. He thought about the war leader's question, trying to find words for something that seemed so obvious to him. "Because she needed help," Marcus said finally. "Because everyone deserves a chance to live. Because being unable to walk doesn't make someone worthless." A murmur went through the assembled warriors. Kethvar translated Marcus's words into their language, and the murmur grew stronger. "In our culture," Kethvar said, rising slowly, "strength is everything. The strong survive, the weak perish, and this is called natural law. But you have shown us a different kind of strength, the strength to value life itself, regardless of physical capability." Another warrior stepped forward, removing her helmet to reveal a scarred face marked by old burn wounds. I am Veltara, battle sister of the Eastern clans. I have slain hundreds in combat, conquered 12 worlds for our empire. But I could not do what you did yesterday." "None of us could," added a third warrior, this one bearing the insignia of a different clan. "We watched the recordings, human. We saw you hold that failing raft together with your bare hands while poison burned your skin. You could have let go. You could have saved yourself and let the current take her. But you didn't." Marcus shook his head. "Anyone would have done the same thing." "No," Kethvar said firmly. "Anyone from your species, perhaps, but not ours. And that is what brings us here." The war leader gestured to his troops, who began to stand in perfect formation. "Marcus of the humans, we have come to offer you alliance, not just friendship, but formal military alliance between our peoples." Marcus blinked in surprise. "I'm just one person. I can't speak for my entire species." "You already have," Veltara said. "Your actions speak louder than any formal diplomatic contact could. If one human, alone and with limited resources, shows such honor toward a stranger, what might your entire species achieve?" Kethvar reached into his armor and produced a crystalline device that glowed with soft blue light. "This is a communication node, linked to our command networks across 17 star systems. We offer it to you as the first official contact between our peoples." Marcus looked at the device, then at Zara, who was still staring at the assembled warriors in wonder. "What about her? In all of this? What happens to Zara?" The question seemed to surprise the Velkarian warriors. Kethvar exchanged glances with his officers before responding. She is cast out. Her status cannot be changed." "Then I refuse your alliance," Marcus said firmly. The forest fell silent again, this time from shock rather than predator presence. 50 elite warriors stared at the human teenager who had just rejected the greatest honor their civilization could offer. "You would refuse alliance between our peoples because of one exile?" Kethvar asked, his voice carefully neutral. "I would refuse alliance with any people who throw away their own," Marcus replied. "Zara saved my life yesterday, too. When the raft was failing, she helped hold it together, even though she was terrified of the water. She's brilliant. Did you know she speaks 4 languages and can calculate river current velocities in her head? She's an engineer, an artist, and one of the bravest people I've ever met. If your society can't see her value, then maybe we don't have as much in common as you think." Marcus's words, translated by Kethvar, caused visible agitation among the warriors. Several stepped forward as if to argue, but their leader held up a hand for silence. "You would make her status a condition of alliance?" Kethvar asked. "I would make your society's willingness to value all its members a condition of alliance," Marcus corrected, "because that's what my people believe in. We don't abandon our own." For a long moment, the only sound was the gentle breeze through the purple leaves. Then Zara spoke, her voice small but clear in English. "Marcus, you cannot change 1,000 years of tradition for one broken Velkarian." Marcus turned to look at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. It was the same determination she had seen when he was building the raft, the same unwavering resolve that had carried her across the toxic river. "Watch me," Marcus said. He turned back to Kethvar and the assembled warriors. "I propose a test, a demonstration. Give me 1 month with Zara, and I'll show you what she's capable of when someone believes in her potential instead of focusing on her limitations." "What kind of demonstration?" Veltara asked. Marcus pointed toward the distant mountains, where the faint outline of structures could be seen. "Those are the ruins of the ancient Forerunner cities, aren't they? The ones your people have been trying to explore for centuries but can't figure out how to enter?" Kethvar's scarred face showed surprise. "How do you know of the Forerunner sites?" "Because my people are explorers too," Marcus said, "and because Zara told me about them last night. She's been studying the ruins during her exile, trying to understand the entry mechanisms. I think between human engineering techniques and her knowledge of Forerunner technology, we might be able to succeed where your warriors have failed." The implications hung in the air like a challenge. The Forerunner ruins contained technology that could revolutionize interstellar travel, but they had remained sealed for millennia. Every Velcarian attempt to breach them had failed. "And if you succeed?" Kethvar asked. "Then you reinstate Zara to full clan status and acknowledge that physical ability isn't the only measure of worth. And then we can talk about alliance between equals who respect all their people." "And if you fail?" Marcus shrugged. "Then I'll have tried to help a friend reach her dreams. That's worth something too." Kethvar looked at his assembled warriors, reading their expressions. The proposal was audacious, impossible even, but so had been yesterday's river crossing. "1 month," the war leader said finally. "But understand, human, if you fail, you may not survive the attempt. The Forerunner sites are dangerous. Many warriors have died trying to breach them." "Then make sure we have good backup," Marcus replied with a grin that made several of the warriors exchange glances. There was something infectious about the human's confidence, something that made impossible things seem merely difficult. Kethvar reached into his armor and produced a second device, this one larger and more complex. "Emergency beacon. If you encounter difficulties beyond your capabilities, activate this and we will extract you." Marcus accepted the device, noting its weight and the intricate crystalline patterns in its construction. "Thank you, but I don't think we'll need it." As the warriors began to withdraw, melting back into the forest with the same precision they had used to arrive, Zara grabbed Marcus's arm with 2 of her hands. "You crazy human," she said, her voice mixing awe with terror. "The Forerunner sites, they are not just locked, they are defended. Automated systems that have killed hundreds of explorers over the centuries." Marcus looked down at her, seeing the fear in her silver eyes, but also something else. Hope. Carefully hidden, but definitely there. "Are you afraid?" he asked. Zara considered the question seriously. "Yes, terrified, but also—" She paused, searching for the right English words. "Also excited. For first time since accident, someone believes I can do something important." Marcus smiled and offered her his hand. "Then let's go prove them right." As they set off toward the distant mountains, neither of them noticed Kethvar watching from concealment. The war leader spoke quietly into his communication device. "All units, begin long-range surveillance of the Forerunner site designated Alpha 7. The human and the exile are attempting breach." "Sir?" came the reply. "Should we intervene if they encounter the automated defenses?" Kethvar watched Marcus patiently helping Zara navigate a fallen log. His respect for the young human growing with every observed interaction. "Only if requested," he replied. "Something tells me these 2 might just surprise us all." The journey to the Forerunner ruins took Marcus and Zara 18 days of careful travel through increasingly dangerous terrain. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the vegetation changed from purple forests to crystalline formations that rang like bells when the wind passed through them. The air grew thinner, and the twin suns of Kepler 442b seemed to burn with a different quality of light, casting rainbow shadows through the crystal forests. Marcus had fashioned a mobility device for Zara from salvaged materials and local resources, a sophisticated wheelchair-like contraption that could navigate rough terrain using flexible wheels made from woven plant fibers, and a suspension system borrowed from Velcarian engineering principles that Zara had taught him. She had been amazed by his intuitive understanding of mechanical systems and his ability to adapt Earth engineering concepts to alien materials. During their journey, they had shared knowledge like traders exchanging precious goods. Marcus learned about Velkarian mathematics, which used base 8 calculations that made certain engineering problems much simpler. Zara absorbed human concepts of inclusive design and adaptive technology, ideas that were revolutionary to someone from a society that typically abandoned those who couldn't meet physical standards. Now, as they crested the final ridge, the Forerunner city spread before them like a fever dream made manifest. The structures defied conventional understanding of architecture. Buildings that seemed to float in impossible configurations, bridges made of solidified light, and at the center of it all, a massive pyramid that appeared to be constructed from folded space itself. "By the ancestors," Zara whispered in her own language, then switched to English. "Is more beautiful than stories told." Marcus nodded, equally awed. The city hummed with dormant power, its crystalline surfaces pulsing with faint patterns of light that seemed almost alive. But he could also see why the Velkarian warriors had failed to breach it. The entire perimeter was surrounded by a shimmering barrier that occasionally sparked with deadly energy. "The defensive grid," Zara explained, pointing with two of her forearms toward different sections of the barrier. "Automated systems that respond to approach. Velkarian warriors try brute force, send large groups to overwhelm defenses. Always fails." Marcus studied the pattern of energy discharges, noting their timing and intensity. His experience with Earth's defensive systems, designed to protect refugee camps from scavenger attacks, had taught him to look for weaknesses in automated defenses. "They're thinking like warriors," he said after a few minutes of observation. "But this isn't a military installation. Look at the architecture. Those aren't fortress walls, they're laboratory containment systems. This place was built by scientists, not soldiers." Zara's silver eyes widened as she followed his logic. "Yes, Forerunners were researchers, explorers. They would not build defenses meant to kill. They would build systems meant to test." Together, they spent 3 days observing the defensive grid from their concealed camp. Marcus noted that the energy discharges followed predictable patterns, while Zara used her knowledge of Forerunner mathematics to calculate the timing sequences. What emerged was a picture not of random deadly force, but of an elaborate testing protocol. "It's an intelligence test," Marcus realized on the 4th morning. "The defense grid isn't trying to kill intruders, it's trying to evaluate them. The energy discharges create a puzzle pattern. Solve the puzzle, prove you're intelligent enough to enter safely." Zara had been working with crystalline computing devices she had built during their journey, using techniques that combined human logical frameworks with Velkarian mathematical principles. "Marcus, I think you're right, but puzzle is in 4 dimensions, not 3. Most species think in 3-dimensional space, but Forerunners, they thought in 4. Can you solve it?" Zara's expression was a mixture of excitement and terror. "Maybe, with your help. You understand how systems work together, mechanical principles, engineering flows. I understand mathematical relationships, dimensional folding. Together." They spent another week preparing, during which Marcus noticed that their camp was occasionally observed by hidden surveillance devices. The Velkarian warriors were keeping their promise to monitor the attempt, ready to extract them if the defenses proved lethal. On the morning they decided to make their attempt, Marcus helped Zara position her mobile chair at the optimal approach point they had calculated. The defensive grid crackled to life as they entered its detection range, energy patterns dancing across the barrier like deadly aurora. "Remember," Zara said, her voice tight with concentration, "we must respond to pattern, not react to fear. Grid will test us in stages: physical coordination, logical reasoning, mathematical comprehension, and finally, empathy. Forerunners valued emotional intelligence as much as analytical. Last test will be about compassion, cooperation." The first stage activated as they approached the outer perimeter. Beams of harmless but visible light created a three-dimensional maze in the air before them, shifting and changing every few seconds. Marcus realized they needed to navigate through it without touching the beams, a test of spatial awareness and coordination. This was where Zara's 4 arms became an advantage rather than a liability. While Marcus focused on propelling her mobile chair through the maze, she used her multiple limbs to track the changing pattern and guide their movement. They moved through the shifting light patterns like dancers, their partnership creating a fluid grace that single-handed navigation could never have achieved. The second stage required solving a series of mathematical puzzles projected in holographic symbols. Here, Zara's knowledge of Forerunner Base 8 mathematics proved crucial, while Marcus's intuitive understanding of mechanical relationships helped decode the symbolic representations. They worked together seamlessly, Marcus pointing out pattern relationships, while Zara performed the complex calculations. The third stage was the most challenging yet, a test of technological understanding. The defensive grid projected blueprints for an alien device, then required them to identify the flaw in its design and propose a correction. Marcus recognized it as a type of power distribution system, while Zara understood the mathematical principles governing energy flow in crystalline matrices. Their combined knowledge allowed them to spot the design error and suggest a modification that would improve efficiency by 30%. But it was the fourth and final stage that truly tested the partnership they had built. The grid presented them with a moral dilemma in the form of a holographic scenario, a city under attack, with only enough defensive power to save either the military district or the civilian hospital. Most species would choose based on strategic value, saving the military assets to continue the fight. Marcus and Zara looked at each other and spoke simultaneously. The hospital. The defensive grid paused for nearly a full minute, as if the response was unexpected. Then, with a sound like crystal chimes in harmony, the barrier dissolved. They rolled through the entrance into the Forerunner city, and Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. Up close, the impossible architecture was even more stunning. Buildings that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once surrounded them, their surfaces covered with inscriptions in a flowing script that seemed to move and shift as he watched. Zara was weeping openly, tears of joy streaming down her pearl-blue face. "We did it, Marcus. We actually did it. First successful breach in 3,000 years. But their triumph was interrupted by the sound of approaching aircraft. Looking up, they saw Velcarian military transports descending toward the city's central plaza. Marcus tensed, wondering if Kethvar had decided to claim the discovery by force. The war leader emerged from the lead transport with a full honor guard, but instead of weapons, they carried ceremonial banners. Kethvar approached Marcus and Zara with an expression of profound respect. "The monitoring devices recorded everything," he said. "We witnessed your success, but more importantly, we witnessed how you achieved it. Together, as equals, each contributing unique strengths to overcome challenges neither could face alone." Kethvar gestured to his warriors, and once again they knelt. But this time, they knelt to both humans and Velcarians alike. "Zara of the coastal clans," the war leader announced formally. "By right of achievement and demonstration of worth, I restore you to full clan status. More than that, I name you first explorer of the Forerunner sites, with full authority to lead investigation teams." Zara stared at him in shock, unable to speak. Kethvar turned to Marcus. "And to you, human, we offer not just alliance, but something far more precious. We offer to learn. Your people see potential where we see limitations. You find strength in cooperation where we have sought dominance. We ask not just for military alliance, but for cultural exchange. Teach us to see as you see." Marcus looked around at the assembled warriors, then at the impossible city surrounding them, then finally at Zara, who was still crying happy tears while staring at the ceremonial banners that marked her restoration. "The alliance isn't between you and me," Marcus said finally. "It's between you and all the humans scattered across this world. My friends, the other survivors, they're all still out there, and they all carry the same values that brought me here. If you want to learn from humanity, you'll have to help me find them first." Kethavar smiled, the expression transforming his scarred face. "Agreed. We will mount a full search and rescue operation immediately. And Marcus?" "Yes?" "When we find your people, will you help us understand this concept you call inclusive design? I think it might revolutionize more than just our engineering." As Velkarian search aircraft launched into the sky to begin looking for the scattered human survivors, Marcus and Zara entered the central pyramid of the Forerunner city together. The interior was filled with technological wonders beyond imagination, star charts showing galaxies beyond their current knowledge, historical records of civilizations that had risen and fallen millions of years before, and most importantly, detailed instructions for technologies that could reshape both their species' futures. But perhaps the most significant discovery was a final message from the Forerunners themselves, inscribed in quantum crystal that translated meaning directly into the reader's consciousness. "To those who solve our puzzles not through force, but through cooperation, not through dominance, but through mutual respect, we leave our greatest gift, not technology, but wisdom. True strength lies not in the perfection of individuals, but in the connections between different kinds of minds working toward common purpose." As Marcus helped Zara navigate through the crystalline archives, accessing databases that contained the collected knowledge of the galaxy's first great civilization, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A simple act of kindness at a river crossing had led to first contact between species, the opening of ancient mysteries, and the beginning of a friendship that would reshape two civilizations. 6 months later, the joint human-Velkarian settlement of New Harmony was thriving in the shadow of the Forerunner city. Marcus had been reunited with 47 other human survivors, while Zara led integrated research teams that combined human ingenuity with Velkarian mathematical precision and Forerunner technological wisdom. The mobile chairs Marcus designed had been adapted for dozens of disabled Velkarians who had previously been exiled, and Zara's adaptive engineering principles were being integrated into everything from spaceship design to urban planning. More importantly, a generation of young Velkarians was growing up with human ideas about inclusion and universal worth, while human children learned Velkarian concepts of honor and mathematical elegance. Marcus often returned to the river where it all began, sometimes alone, sometimes with Zara, always with a sense of wonder at how a single moment of choosing compassion over safety had led to such profound changes. On one such evening, as the twin suns set over the chemical river that no longer seemed dangerous, but merely different, Zara asked him a question that had been troubling her. "Marcus, what if I had not been there that day? What if river had been empty?" Marcus thought about it for a moment, watching the rainbow patterns dance on the water's surface. "Then I would have crossed anyway, probably just to see what was on the other side. And maybe I would have met someone else who needed help, or maybe I would have just had an adventure. But I'm glad it was you, Zara. I can't imagine having done any of this with anyone else." She smiled, the expression lighting up her pearl blue face. "Humans have saying, yes? About rivers? We have lots of sayings about rivers. The one about not being able to step in same river twice?" Marcus nodded. "Because it's always changing. The water you step in the second time isn't the same water that was there before." "Yes," Zara said thoughtfully. "But Marcus, I think saying is incomplete." "How so?" "River changes you too. The person who steps in river second time is not same person who stepped in first time. River changes, person changes, universe changes, all connected. Marcus looked at his friend, remembering the frightened, injured alien girl he had found by the riverbank and seeing the confident, accomplished explorer she had become. Then he looked at his own reflection in the water and barely recognized the desperate refugee boy he had been. "You're right," he said. "The river changed everything." As the stars emerged in the alien sky, the lights of New Harmony twinkled in the distance, a beacon of hope built on the simple principle that everyone deserved a chance to cross their rivers safely, no matter how toxic the water or how difficult the current. And in the quantum archives of the Forerunner City, new entries appeared daily, written by the combined efforts of two species learning to see the universe through each other's eyes. All because one human boy had decided that helping a stranger was worth any risk.